Host of the African History Network show. It is Friday, August 11th, 2023, and we are live. So I just finished doing Roland Martin Unfiltered, just finished appearing on this show. And we talked about this story that just broke. I know TMZ has a story about this, but the Daily Beast is the first article I saw dealing with this. So everybody has been talking about the Montgomery Brawl that took place Saturday, August 5th, 2023 in Montgomery, Alabama. And we've seen the viral videos of a melee that took place when you had an African-American co-captain of a ship asking some white people in a boat to move their boat along, okay? And a huge fight breaks out. You have people who are on one of the ships, African-Americans, come down to assist this African-American co-captain who's being beaten by a group of white people. So we've seen a number of, we've seen a few arrests in this. First, it was 3 white people who were arrested. Then you had a 4th white person who was arrested, 21-year-old Mary Todd. There's an article from thedailybeast.com from August 10th, 2023, picked up by Yahoo News. Cops nab another assailant in Montgomery boat deck brawl. Okay, so Mary Todd is 21 years old and was the one. She was a white woman who was we see in the purple shirt apparently, and she was kicking the African-American man, the captain of the ship. Okay, so what just happened is that the person that so many people have been talking about, who was ostensibly known as Folding Chairman, his real name is Reggie Ray. Reggie Ray just turned himself in to the authorities there in Montgomery, Alabama. So thedailybeast.com also has this article picked up by Yahoo News or Yahoo Movies or Yahoo.com. Folding Chairman turns himself in over a wild dock brawl. Folding Chairman turns himself in over wild dock brawl. Okay, so this is Reggie Ray. He's 42 years old, and I talked about this on Roland's show because to me, it seemed like he was coming to the aid of the African-American co-captain, whose last name is Pickett. It seemed like he was coming to his aid to help him. Okay, now he's not so far. Reggie Ray has not been charged with assault. Okay, he's being charged with disorderly conduct. All right, disorderly conduct. So the 42-year-old man seen wielding a folding chair in the viral melee on an Alabama riverfront has handed himself in almost a week after the wild brawl. Has turned himself in almost a week after wild brawl. Now, Reggie Ray was charged with disorderly conduct and was being housed in the municipal jail on Friday night, Montgomery, Alabama police said. Now, in footage that was seen around the world, Reggie Ray appeared to swing the white folding chair at several members of a group of white boaters who had launched an unprovoked attack on the Black Riverboat co-captain Damian Pickett. So Damian Pickett is the African-American man who we see in the video, and he's asking one of the people on the boat to move their boat along, and we see this group attack him. Okay, then we see these African-American men come to his rescue. Right now, Montgomery, Alabama police previously charged 3 men and 1 woman. Mary Todd, who's 21 years old, was the most recent person charged. She was the 4th person charged. Reggie Ray is the fifth person charged. He's the only African-American who's been charged so far. Montgomery police previously charged 3 men and 1 woman, all of whom are white, with third-degree assault after they jumped Damian Pickett for, quote unquote, peacefully asking them to move their pontoon boat out of the riverboat's reserved dock. They were identified earlier this week as Richard Roberts, 48 years old, Alan Todd, 23 years old, Zachary Shipman, 25 years old, and Mary Todd, 21 years old. Now, the assault on co-captain Damian Pickett enraged passengers and crew on the Harriet II riverboat, so much so that one 16-year-old worker jumped overboard and swam to the shore to aid his colleague. Others spilled off the ferry once it was finally able to dock, quickly turning the tables on Damian Pickett's attackers. Now, Reggie Ray's weapon of choice turned him into an internet sensation, spawned countless folding chair memes, videos, all types of things like this. But police, according to thedailybeast.com, police were as impressed. Montgomery, Alabama police chief Daryl Albert appealed on Tuesday, this past Tuesday, which was Tuesday, August 8th, for Reggie Ray to turn himself in for further questioning. Now, in his statement to police, obtained on Friday, August 11th by local news outlet WSFA, Damian Pickett said that after the pontoon boat owners refused to move and flipped off the riverboat for more than 45 minutes, he headed ashore on a smaller boat to move the pontoon boat a few feet up. But one of the now arrested men, one of the white men, yelled, quote, "If you touch my boat, I'm going to beat your ass," he said. Okay, this is according to co-captain Damian Pickett when he was interviewed by Montgomery, Alabama police. Okay, he said that one of the men told him, if you touch my boat, I'm going to beat your ass. Now, as 3 men suddenly launched on co-captain Damian Pickett, he claimed that one of his assailants told him, quote, "I'm going to kill you, MF," end quote. Now, while police say they didn't find enough evidence to warrant hate crime charges, okay, and hate crime is, there's federal statutes for hate crime, so is not based upon what people think a hate crime is based upon there's a legal standard for hate crimes, and you have to meet the legal standard for something to be classified as a hate crime and to be able to prosecute something as a hate crime. Okay, now, while police said they did not find enough evidence to warrant hate crime charges, the mother of a 16-year-old boy assaulted in the melee reportedly told police officers that she heard one attacker tell F that N-word moments before the attack. Okay, F that N-word moments before the attack. Now, so those that watch my show, you know, I really try not to curse. I don't do a lot of cursing, anything like that. So you can fill in the blanks. Okay. Now, the Harriet II's captain Jim Cottrell, who is a white man, Jim Cottrell, told the Daily Beast on Tuesday, August 8th, that he also believed that his co-captain Damian Pickett was attacked because he was Black or African American. Captain Jim Cottrell said, quote, "It makes no sense to have 6 people try to beat the snot out of you just because you moved their boat up a few feet." Just because you moved their boat up a few feet. Now, he said, quote, "In my opinion, the attack on Damian was racially motivated," end quote. All right, now you can read more of this at the Daily Beast, and there's been I first found out about it from so those that watch Roll Martin Unfiltered, Kelly Bethea who's an attorney and communication specialist, and we're Facebook friends. We're usually on Roland Martin Unfiltered on Fridays. I saw so many people posting about this story. I saw Kelly posting about this story, so I inboxed her on Facebook. I said, Kelly, what the hell are these people talking about? Okay, and then she sent me the video from Shannon Sharp's Twitter page, or now it's X, but it's still Twitter to me. And so I watched some of it. Now, ABC News has an article. So S. Lee Merritt, who is a well-known African-American attorney, handles a lot of civil rights issues, civil rights cases, things of this nature, right? S. Lee Merritt is the attorney for Reggie Ray. Okay, so abcnews.com has this article. Alabama riverboat melee, fifth suspect turns himself in, police say. So if we look at this, all right. Now, also what I want to do, how's everybody doing? Share this broadcast on your social media platforms. Some of you all just saw me on Roland Martin Unfiltered. We discussed this. I read more about Reggie Ray and read more about what just happened. So we're discussing this here. We'll talk about it also Sunday on my show, the African History Network show, here on my social media platforms, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But I also want to deal with, for a few minutes, something very disrespectful that so many people have been posting on social media, saying stupid things like we are not our ancestors. Okay, I'm going to address that here in just a minute. I did a post on our Facebook fan page, the African History Network, about this, and my personal page, Michael Imhotep. Apparently, you've never read this book and have not really studied the history of the civil rights movement. This book right here, this nonviolent stuff that gets you killed, how guns made the civil rights movement possible, by Professor Charles E. Cobb Jr. We're going to discuss this here in just a minute, because if you say something is ignorant and is stupid, as we are not our ancestors, historically it's inaccurate, but also if you understand African cosmology and you understand that when a child is born, that is a spirit of an ancestor coming back to fulfill a purpose, you're showing how stupid you are on two levels. So we're going to deal with that in just a minute as well. So when we look at this here, Alabama riverfront melee, fifth suspect turns himself in, police say. So there's a statement from, and this is from August 11th, 2023. There's a statement from Reggie Ray's attorney, S. Lee Merritt. Okay, so as I stated, Reggie Ray's 42 years old. He turned himself in to police on Friday and was charged with disorderly conduct, said. He's currently housed in the municipal jail. Now, hopefully bail will be set soon for him. Hopefully all these people that have been putting out these social media memes, talking about the folding chair and him and all this stuff, hopefully they'll contribute to his legal defense fund. Okay. Hopefully they'll financially support this brother. People who've been making money, selling, if they monetize videos, anything like that. But even if they didn't, okay, hopefully we will donate to this brother's legal defense fund. Now, an attorney for Reggie Ray, who is African-American, as I stated, told ABC News his client was, quote, involuntarily roped into the disorderly conduct initiated by a violent white mob. Quote, involuntarily roped into the disorderly conduct initiated by a violent white mob. S. Lee Merritt, attorney S. Lee Merritt, went on to say, quote, Mr. Ray, he went on to say, Mr. Ray will continue to participate with the ongoing investigation concerning the same, and is committed to be forthcoming about his limited role in the brawl, Okay, so we see a picture here of the assault on Damian Pickett, who is the African-American co-captain of the Harriet II ship. Now, Reggie Ray's arrest follows that of 21-year-old Mary Todd, who was booked and charged with one count of assault in the third degree on Thursday, August 10th, as I stated. Okay, so Mary Todd was the white woman who is 21 years old. And this is according to the Montgomery Police Department. Okay, so she was booked on third-degree assault charges. Two other suspects turned themselves in to the Montgomery Police Department on Wednesday. The department said, as I stated. So read the rest of this article. And they're dealing with assault charges as well. Now, another suspect, Richard Roberts, a 48-year-old white male, was the first to turn himself in on Tuesday, August 8th, after charges were filed. Now, Roberts was charged 2 counts of third-degree assault. Okay, so check this out. Now, there is the other thing that I want to discuss here. So it looks like this could be very much a situation of Reggie Ray was acting in defense of Damian Pickett. Okay, now I want to hear from the police the justification of disorderly conduct charges. Okay, if this goes to court, I want to see how this plays out. You do have a right to use force when it is in the defense of others. Okay, you do have a right. Now, laws vary from state to state. That is true. Okay, but you do have a right to use force in defense of others, but it has to be force that matches the force that is being used against the person that you are defending. So I want to see how this plays out. Now, many of you all have seen these different posts on social media, and I had to get on be honest with you, I had to get on a couple of people about this. As a historian, things like this infuriate me. They're very disrespectful to our ancestors, and we really don't understand our history. Okay, but I saw posts saying things like, we're not our ancestors, and oftentimes they refer to the modern day civil rights movement. You have this idiotic term floating around, respectability politics. I have absolutely no clue what the hell that is. That's just something that popped up in like the last 10, maybe 15 years. But oftentimes people confuse respectability politics with self-respect. Okay. Oftentimes people confuse what they call respectability politics. They confuse that with self-respect. So I did this post on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, and my personal page, Michael Imhotep. And I posted the cover of this book here, This Nonviolent Stuff Will Get You Killed, How Guns Made the Civil Rights Movement Possible. And I'm scrolling down to the post that I did. All right. So I did this post August 7th. And what I said was how disrespectful it was to make a statement like this. Okay. And let's see here. Let's flip over to this. I want you to see this. Everybody share this broadcast on your social media platforms. Invite your friends to tune in. Okay. And if you like this type of information, also you can support the African History Network, $ the AHNShow, through Cash App and through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHNShow. And visit our website, theafricanhistorynetwork.com. We have information there, as well as information on my online history classes that I teach on Saturdays and Sundays. We'll give you some information about that as well. All right, now, if we look here at this post that I did, let's go to this here. All right. Here's what I said. I posted the cover of this book. Now, Professor Charles E. Cobb Jr. was a field secretary for SNCC, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, operating for 5 years in rural Mississippi, organizing African Americans to get the right to vote. Okay, organizing African Americans to register to vote and to vote. Okay, and if you know anything about the history of Mississippi, you know this was very, very dangerous work. All right, so what I said was we don't understand our own history. One of my teachers, Professor James Small, and you've seen, some of you all have seen interviews I've done with Professor James Small. I've interviewed him a number of times. Professor James Small told me personally that the civil rights movement was not a nonviolent movement. Okay, he told me personally that the civil rights movement was not a nonviolent movement, and he said that if it had not been for African Americans with guns, there would not have been a civil rights movement, because oftentimes it was African Americans with guns who were protecting the civil rights workers from the white supremacists, from the Ku Klux Klan, from the bigots, because we could not get protection from the local sheriff or from the local police oftentimes. Now, this is even before the Deacons for Defense of Justice were founded around July 1964 in Jonesboro, Louisiana. This is even before the Deacons for Defense and Justice were founded. Okay, I mean, before then you had groups like Robert F. Williams and the Black Guard. Oftentimes it was just African Americans who didn't even have a name. It wasn't even a name for a group. It was just, you know, Negroes with guns. All right, now I went on to say that too many people are commenting on the fight in Alabama and are saying things like, we are not our ancestors. Okay, we are not our ancestors. That's the problem. We have not studied our history to know that we have a deep history of fighting back. We have a deep history of fighting back. Okay, so then I share an excerpt from this book, this Nonviolent Stuff That Gets You Killed. That's an excerpt that's on the back of it. Okay, and it talks about Dr. King. Because what a lot of people don't know about Dr. King, and unfortunately, Dr. King is one of our misunderstood leaders. Dr. King was a revolutionary. Okay, Dr. King was not a punk, contrary to popular belief. Dr. King owned guns until Bayard Rustin convinced him to get rid of his guns. All right, and I encourage people, we need to read Dr. King's books. Dr. King wrote 5 books. Probably his most important book was his last book, Where Do We Go From Here, Chaos or Community? Okay, Where Do We Go From Here, Chaos or Community, which came out in 1967. This was the last book he wrote. He wrote 5 books. His first book, Stride, was called Stride Toward Freedom. It came out in 1958, and it's all about the history of the Montgomery bus boycott. All right, now here is an excerpt, and this is at Amazon.com. The book is at Amazon.com. Try your local African-American book dealer first. If you can't get it there, I guess maybe get it at Amazon. But I want to show you an excerpt from this book that talks about Dr. King. Okay. And let me flip over to this here. Here's what this says. This Nonviolent Stuff That Gets You Killed, How Guns Made the Civil Rights Movement Possible. So this book came out December 4th, 2015 by Professor Charles E. Cobb Jr. Visiting Martin Luther King Jr. during the Montgomery bus boycott. Okay, so this took place, this melee, this brawl took place in Montgomery, Alabama, this place where the Montgomery bus boycott took place. Now, keep in mind, Montgomery is the capital of Alabama. All right. The Montgomery bus boycott takes place from December 5th, 1955 to December 20th, 1956. It lasted 381 days. It was scheduled to only last 1 day. It ended up lasting 381 days. So visiting Martin Luther King Jr. during the Montgomery, Alabama bus boycott, journalist William Worthy almost sat on a loaded pistol. Journalist William Worthy almost sat on a loaded pistol. Just for self-defense, Dr. King assured him. Just for self-defense. Now, it was not the only weapon that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. kept for such a purpose. All right. One of his advisors remembered the Reverend's Montgomery, Alabama home as an arsenal. Okay, as an arsenal. Now, keep in mind, Dr. King's house there in Montgomery, Alabama, was firebombed twice in 1956 during the Montgomery bus boycott. Okay, and also during the Montgomery bus boycott, Dr. King tries to get a concealed pistol license as well in 1956. All right. He was denied the concealed pistol license. The whole way a lot of the history of the civil rights movement has been told is false. Okay. If it had not been for African Americans with guns protecting civil rights workers and using the guns against the Klan, against the bigots, against the white supremacists, there would not have been a civil rights movement, period. We have a long history of armed resistance in this country. The civil rights movement was not a nonviolent movement. And you have civil rights superstars out here who are lying, saying it was, okay? And they are financially profiting. Let me put it like that politely. They are financially profiting from marketing the modern day civil rights movement as a nonviolent movement. It was not. Now, like Dr. King, many ostensibly nonviolent civil rights activists, quote unquote nonviolent, but prefaced by the word ostensibly, which means to give the outward appearance of one thing, but the reality is something different. Like Dr. King, many ostensibly, quote unquote, nonviolent civil rights activists embraced their constitutional right to self-protection. Yet this crucial dimension of the Afro-American freedom struggle has been long ignored by history. And the reason why is because if we knew that we fought back differently back then, we would fight back differently today. This is I'm not talking about vigilantism, but African Americans have a history of armed resistance and protecting ourselves, using guns to protect ourselves, exercising using our Second Amendment right, going back to after the Civil War ends and going during the Reconstruction era. Okay, we were arming ourselves then because you had African American men who fought in the Civil War. There's going to be close to about 200,000 African American men who serve in the Civil War. The U.S. Army on behalf of the Union and the Navy. We learn military strategy. We learn how to use guns. We learn how to shoot if we didn't already know how to shoot. Okay, we learn how to kill. We learn how to fight. We're going to use those skills to protect our communities when we're being attacked by the Klan, when we're being attacked by the White League, when we're being attacked by the Knights of the White Camellia and these other white supremacist organizations. And when Reconstruction ends in 1877, with the compromise of 1877 between the Republicans and the Democrats to allow Rutherford B. Hayes, the Republican candidate for president, to become president, and he agrees to remove the remaining Union troops out of the South so that the white supremacists can take back control of the local government and the state legislature. When we're being terrorized by white supremacists after Reconstruction ends, we're using our military skills and our skills with weaponry, firearms, things of this nature. We're using that to protect our community. Now, there are going to be times, of course, when we end up losing. It's just too many white people, too many bullets. But we usually, our history is we fought back and we shot back. Even when you deal with Tulsa, Oklahoma, June 1st, 1921, a lot of people, when they talk about this story, they talk about the fact that, okay, Tulsa was burned down. You had 10,000, 15,000 white people that came in and burned it down. Well, wait a second. There were a lot of retired World War I African-American veterans in North Tulsa who were armed. We fought back. We shot back. But what really set off the Tulsa Race Massacre was after Dick Rowland was arrested, the 19-year-old African-American man who a couple of days before he is getting onto an elevator at an office building in downtown Tulsa, and the different versions of the story, but he trips. He reaches out to grab the arm of Sarah Page. She's a 17-year-old elevator operator. She screams. Okay, white people come running, and they think that Dick Rowland did something to her, attacked her, something like that. That wasn't the case. And she never made allegations that he attacked her or tried to rape her or anything like this. Okay. But as the story spreads and it gets printed in the white newspaper, things like this, it gets totally twisted around, right? So Dick Rowland is arrested. He's there he's in the jail. There's an African American deputy sheriff. Okay, there's an African American deputy sheriff. You have a group of dozens of African American men who are armed to the teeth, who show up at the jail to protect Dick Rowland, to keep Dick Rowland from being taken out. So there's a mob of white people, white men, somewhere around 500, maybe more. Okay, and it starts out is maybe about 75 African American men. Some go back, get other brothers. They come back with their guns. They go back, get other brothers, come back. So it's about 200 African American men with guns to protect Dick Rowland and back up the African American sheriff. There's an altercation between one African American man with a gun and one white man, and it goes something like, he says, "What are you doing with that gun?" or something like that. There's a tussle over the gun. The gun goes off, and people run. All right. So then it's going to be early that morning, June 1st, 1921, around 6 a.m., something like that. Thousands of white people, they're going to invade North Tulsa, where African Americans live. Okay. They're going to burn down about 1,200 homes, something like that. The Red Cross put the estimate at about 300 African Americans were killed. It's believed that there's a lot more than that, because there are reports of people seeing black bodies being dumped in the river. Also, you're going to have African Americans who flee North Tulsa and go into surrounding towns, and they're wounded and they're going to die there as well. Okay, so we don't know the exact number. All right, we have a history of fighting back. We have a history of armed resistance in this country. Okay, so if we go back here quickly to this excerpt from this book, this Nonviolent Stuff That Gets You Killed, How Guns Made the Civil Rights Movement Possible. Okay, like Dr. King, many ostensibly nonviolent civil rights activists embraced their constitutional right to self-protection, yet this crucial dimension of the Afro-American freedom struggle has been long ignored by history. In this Nonviolent Stuff That Gets You Killed, Professor Charles E. Cobb Jr. recovers this history, describing the vital role that armed self-defense has played in the survival and liberation of Black communities. The civil rights movement was not a nonviolent movement. Now, we weren't vigilantes like the Ku Klux Klan were vigilantes. We are defending ourselves. You coming to attack us. We ain't, generally speaking, we ain't going into your neighborhoods trying to attack you. You're coming to attack us. You're attacking us when we try to vote. You attack us when we start businesses that are more successful than yours. When you study Ida B. Wells, and just bear with me because I'm here a lot. This is going longer than I thought it was going to go. Okay, because I got a lot of work to do. I have to prepare to teach class tomorrow 2 p.m. Okay, when you study Ida B. Wells, right? We know she co-founded the NAACP 1908. We know she was part of the Niagara movement 1905. Ida B. Wells led a camp. She was very active in the anti-lynching movement, right? The way that Ida B. Wells got involved in the anti-lynching movement was after the mosque, what are known as the mosque store murders of 1892 in Memphis, Tennessee. Okay, the Moss Store murders, MOSS, the Moss Store murders of 1892 in Memphis, Tennessee. And this deals with Tom Moss, who was a postal carrier, but he was a successful African-American businessman. Okay, and he owned the People's Grocery Store there in Memphis, Tennessee. And there was it was a successful grocery store, and there was a white competitor who was jealous of the success, that Tom Moss was having. And he accused Tom Moss of taking some of his African-American customers. Okay. So this, and now there's a good, we do like it in the online history classes I teach. Like I teach one class, Black resistance movements from the Haitian Revolution, U.S. Civil War, Civil Rights Movement, the Black Power Movement, 1800 to 1968. I do this on Sundays, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We discuss all this stuff and we highlight different examples of us fighting back, right? This article here is from 13.org and PBS.org, Public Broadcasting System. The Rise and Fall of Jim Crow, Ida B. Wells forced out of Memphis, Tennessee, 1892. Okay, so what happens is that this white store owner, okay, a white competitor, he gets upset with Tom Moss and he sends some off-duty sheriff deputies to Tom Moss' store at night to destroy the store. Okay. Now, Tom Moss and his friends, two of his friends, are there at the store at night, and they don't know that these are off-duty sheriff deputies. Okay. So Tom Moss and his friends shoot back, rightfully so. They shoot back. So a gun battle breaks out, right? And several white sheriff deputies were wounded. Now, Tom Moss and his two friends and 100 other African-American supporters were arrested. Now, they're defending themselves. They have a Second Amendment right to arm themselves. And along with that right, it does come responsibility for you to safely store your gun, safely use your gun, things of this nature, right? They're defending themselves against these vigilantes coming to destroy the store. Tom Moss, his two friends, and 100 other African-American supporters get arrested. Several nights later, masked vigilantes, I'm pretty sure they were armed with guns. Masked vigilantes dragged Tom Moss and his two friends from their jail cell, took them to a deserted railroad yard, and shot them to death. They were lynched for defending Tom Moss's grocery store. So we get segregated. We create economically viable businesses. You get upset for us being economically successful after you segregate us. So now you want to come and inflict violence upon us. Now, enraged by their deaths, Ida B. Wells lashed out at the refusal of Memphis, Tennessee police to arrest the well-known killers. Ida B. Wells encouraged, now pay attention to this because we also have a history of economic withdrawal strategies. Fighting back with economic boycotts. So we armed ourselves, defended ourselves with guns and bullets, and we also used our dollars like bullets and took out some of these businesses by redirecting our dollar and boycotting white-owned businesses. Okay, maybe not all white businesses, but those who are harming us, things of this nature, right? So I had encouraged African Americans to protest these killings with, and I'm trying to blow this up so you can see it here, increase the font size. Encourage blacks to protest with boycotts of white-owned stores and public transportation. We have to, as Dr. King said, April 3rd, 1968, in his last speech, I've been to the mountaintop. He said we have to find a way to redistribute the pain, and he called for economic boycotts. He said boycott Hart's Bread, Coca-Cola, Wonder Bread, and Seal Test Milk in Memphis, Tennessee. Okay, he said take your banks out of the banks downtown, put your bank in Tri-State Bank, which was a black-owned bank. He talked about taking out insurance policies with African-American owned insurance companies. He left an economic blueprint for African-Americans. Okay, but we focus on going to the mountaintop. We focus on the last 2 minutes of the speech, or let me rephrase that. We have been taught by largely white-controlled media to focus on the last 2 or 2.5 minutes of the speech. The speech was 43 minutes. He talks about the fact that African Americans our gross domestic product economic our gross domestic product as a people in this country would make us the 9th largest economy in the world at that time, the 9th or 10th largest economy in the world at that time. Okay, he left an economic blueprint for us, and he said that we have to always anchor our external direct action with the power of economic withdrawal. This is in the speech I've been to the mountaintop, April 3rd, 1968. Okay, he said we have to always anchor our external direct action with the power of economic withdrawal. So what this means is when you have these mass protests, you got voting rights protests, you got Black Lives Matter protests, whatever it is, police misconduct, well, you have all these protests. You also have to have targeted, sustained economic withdrawal strategies to target your adversary, to weaken them, so you can leverage your economics to enforce your political agenda. When was the last time you saw one of these civil rights organizations have economic withdrawal strategies? I'm not saying a travel advisory to Florida or South Carolina, because when they even give an explanation, they'll tell you, we're not saying don't go to Florida. We're saying be careful if you do. When was the last time any of these civil rights organizations or Black Lives Matter organizations, whatever, have called for and had a well thought out, planned, organized economic withdrawal strategy targeting white corporations? All right, now the lynchings were a turning point in Ida B. Wells' life. She began to investigate and reveal the real motive or real motivations that lay behind lynching. Like many middle-class African Americans, Ida B. Wells had accepted the myth that only poor African Americans were lynched for heinous crimes. Ida B. Wells was now shocked into recognizing that even innocent middle-class African Americans could be targets of lynchings. As Ida B. Wells investigated the reasons for lynchings, she discovered that a number of victims of African American men who were victims of lynching were lynched not for rape, but for having sexual relations with consenting white women. She discovered a number of African American men who were lynched for having consenting sexual relations. She discovered a number of African American men who were lynched for having consenting sexual relations with white women. Okay. Now, quote, nobody in this section of the community, now she wrote this in her newspaper, nobody in this section of the community believes that old threadbare lie that Negro men rape white women. If Southern men are not careful, a conclusion might be reached which will be very damaging to the moral reputation of their women, end quote. So they're going to trash. So this gets printed in the newspaper. Now, she wrote under a pseudonym, so they didn't know it was her. They knew the newspaper is coming from, but they didn't know it was a black woman writing this. So they trash her newspaper office. She's out of town when this happens. She's going to end up having to leave Memphis, Tennessee, because she's in death threats. All right. And Ida B. Wells also said that she talked about the Winchester rifle. She said every African-American home need to have a Winchester rifle in it also to fight back against these white supremacists trying to kill us. Okay, so check out this article. It deals with the rise and fall of Jim Crow. This is at 13.org, but it's from PBS.org, Public Broadcasting System. Ida B. Wells forced out of Memphis, 1892. Okay, so we have a long history of armed resistance. We have a long history of fighting back. And I remember I was speaking at the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History here in Detroit. Now, my Dr. King, see, I don't get asked to speak a lot for Dr. King Day, because I don't do these okie doke Negro we shall overcome, not to disrespect we shall overcome, but I don't do Dr. King's speeches to make white people feel comfortable with the oppression of African Americans. Okay. Now at the same time, I don't do speeches trying to make white people feel guilty either. I deal with history. I deal with real history. Okay. And I deal with the revolutionary Dr. King. All right. So I remember I was speaking at the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History here in Detroit. And this had to be about 2015, I think it was. And I was speaking on Dr. King Day. I only got invited to speak one time for Dr. King Day because, so they had majority African Americans at that time. Gentrification wasn't as deep as it is now in Detroit. But you have a few white people, but you have children there as well. So I'm doing a PowerPoint presentation. I deal with facts and evidence. I could back up what I say. Proper documentation ends all conversation. And I started talking about, so we're dealing with Dr. King, but also the civil rights movement. When we talk about Dr. King, we can't deal with him just as an individual. We have to deal with him within the movement that he is operating within. Okay. So I talk about the Deacons for Defense and Justice, right? And I show the cover of the book, the Deacons for Defense and Justice. And I said, are you trying to tell me that the Deacons for Defense and Justice are not part of the civil rights movement? I said, oftentimes they were used by different civil rights groups to protect civil rights workers, like CORE, Congress of Racial Equality, but sometimes they did protection for Dr. King. And I talked about the book, This Nonviolent Stuff Will Get You Killed. Okay, I said the civil rights movement was not a nonviolent movement. I said, I'll debate anybody you have on this. I don't care how many degrees they have. Okay, they never asked me to speak again for Dr. King Day celebration at the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History. I don't know if that has something to do with it, but I can prove what I'm saying. Okay, I'm a historian. I've been studying 31 years. I can prove what I'm saying. Proper documentation ends all conversation, but they never asked me to speak again at the King Day celebration. So, all right, now, okay, so drawing on his experiences in the civil rights movement and giving voice to its participants, Professor Charles E. Cobb Jr. lays bare the paradoxical relationship between the nonviolent civil rights struggle and the long history and importance of African Americans taking up arms to defend themselves against white supremacist violence. That is our history. Okay, our history is not turn the other cheek. No, and even when you get deep into Dr. King's writings, debate was over, should you bring guns? Should you have armed resistance at like planned civil rights rallies, at planned civil rights marches? Okay. Now, here's the thing. Now, oftentimes you'd have African Americans with guns who are in the car. So let me put it to you like this. I first found out about Professor Charles E. Cobb Jr. On News One Now with Roland Martin. This is probably about 2015. And Roland had, he interviewed Professor Charles E. Cobb Jr. on News One Now with Roland Martin. And then he had him on his radio show. So Roland's radio show used to be 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. because I used to guest host his nationally syndicated radio show numerous times. If you listen to him when he was on WVON out of Chicago or WAOK or something, you heard me, okay? Because I used to guest host his nationally syndicated radio show numerous times. This was when he was on the Empowerment Radio Network, because my show was on the Empowerment Radio Network as well. Dave Anderson was the founder of the Empowerment Radio Network out of Atlanta. So my show was on later in the day. We had at one point we had Warren Ballantyne. We had Bev Smith, who used to be on BET. I think her show was Our Voices on BET. Bev Smith, she was on the radio station. Rashad Ritchie, he was on the radio station as well. Okay, so Roland had Professor Charles E. Cobb Jr. on his radio show later that day for 2 hours, and Professor Charles E. Cobb Jr. is just breaking down story after story after story of armed African-American resistance during the civil rights movement. And what he said was, he said like a lot of the civil rights workers, like a lot of the youth civil rights workers came from the North and went down south, especially like 1964 Freedom Summer, right? They came from the north, went down south, and you had white people, you had like white youth, white teenagers, white college students who were part of the civil rights movement as well. And you know, when you watch Eyes on the Prize, they tell you a lot of times, like when the white supremacists would attack, those white people, you know, they would stick out in the crowd, and they oftentimes would get the brunt of the attack because they would call N-word lovers, things like this, right? But he said, Professor Charles E. Cobb Jr. said, when they first got down there, he said, the black people down in Mississippi said, we know you're nonviolent, but we're not. And we're not going to let these white people kill you. And he said that whenever they stayed at somebody's home, there was always a gun in the home. There was a shotgun over the fireplace. There was a gun on the nightstand, because growing up in the South, okay, and prior to the Great Migration, which starts in 1915, about 90% of African Americans lived in the South. As recently, if you go back to 1910, 90% of African Americans lived in the South. That's as a result of the as a legacy of slavery. Okay, even today, it's about, I think it's about 55% of African Americans live in the South, right? So you grow up in a gun culture. You may grow up on a farm. Your family may own a farm. You have to have firearms on the farm to protect your livestock, to protect your property. You may live 2, 3, 4, 5 miles away from the sheriff's office or police station or something like that. So you have to be able to protect yourself. Then also you're going hunting. So you may learn, as when you're a teenager, your grandfather teaches you how to hunt, your father teaches you how to hunt. So it's a different culture. You grew up in a gun culture, right? So this is our history here. And we go through, if we go through and look at what happened after World War I ends, when World War I ends in 1918, in the next year is 1919, and you have what's known as the Red Summer. And there's about 25 major race riots all across the country. Okay, how many people are familiar with the Red Summer? All right, so I deal with this. I deal with this in my Sunday class, dealing with Black resistance movements. But there's a good article from history.com, which is the official website of the History Channel. And this deals with the history of how African American World War I veterans used their military skills to fight back against white supremacist mobs that were attacking the African American community during the Red Summer 1919. Red Summer 1919, how Black World War I vets fought back against racist mobs. All right. So we're using our military strategy that we learned in World War I. We're using, and we brought back guns from World War I also. We're using military strategy. We're using those skills to fight back and shoot back against white supremacists. Okay. Just an excerpt from this article. White sailors really home from the war had been on a days-long drunken rampage, assaulting and in some cases lynching Black people streets. Okay, so they're talking about the race riot in July 1919 in Washington D.C., because there are about 25 major race riots across the country in 1919. It's called the Red Summer. James Weldon Johnson, who wrote the lyrics to what would become known as Lift Every Voice and Sing, the Black national anthem, he named it the Red Summer because the streets of America were flowing with blood. Okay, now this article goes on to say the relentless onslaught proved contagious, escalating in dozens of cities across the U.S. in what would become known as the Red Summer. The racist attacks in 1919 were widespread and often indiscriminate, but in many places they were initiated by white servicemen and centered upon the 380,000 African-American World War I veterans who had just returned from the war. Quote, because of their military service, Black veterans were seen as a particular threat to Jim Crow and racial subordination, end quote, notes a report by the Equal Justice Initiative. Because some of them had been overseas, they saw how African Americans were treated in France. But the other thing was, they came back home with a new sense of pride. They were called the New Negro, okay? This is at the same time that you have Marcus Garvey building chapters, setting up chapters of the Universal Negro Improvement Association, which starts in 1914 in Jamaica. Then he comes to the U.S. in 1916. He wants to link up with Booker T. Washington, but Booker T. Washington died the previous year in 1915. So you have Marcus Garvey setting up chapters of the UNIA. You have the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History, Dr. Carter G. Woodson. He co-founds the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History, September 9th, 1915 in Chicago. So you have this taking place. And these African-American men who served in World War I, they said, we served this country, we fought for this country, we shed blood, some of us died for this country. They said, we want all of our rights now. We want all of our rights now. Okay. They said, we're not going to deal with this segregation, this Jim Crow anymore. They came back ready to destroy white supremacy and racism. Okay. We want first class citizenship now, not just for the veterans who fought, but for all African Americans. We want first class citizenship now. Okay. All right. Now, let's go back to this. How's everybody doing? Give us a thumbs up, give us a heart, give us a like on this broadcast. I'm Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network, host of the African History Network show. Hopefully you're learning a lot from this information in this broadcast. I'm gonna wrap up in a few minutes because I have a lot of work to do. Visit our website, theafricanhistorynetwork.com, theafricanhistorynetwork.com. If you like this type of information, please register for my 12-week online history classes that I teach on Saturdays and Sundays. On Saturdays, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you go to our website and scroll down, you see information about our radio show. On Sundays, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But on Saturdays, I teach ancient Kemet, one of the original names for Egypt, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. This is a 12-week online course that I teach. We deal with thousands of years of history, what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. I do a PowerPoint presentation. We have book references, articles, video clips. We show you the book references on the screen so you don't have to buy the books. You can buy the books if you want to. I encourage you to buy the books, but you don't have to follow along in class, okay? And we do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded, so you can go back and watch it anytime. As soon as you register, we have sessions of the class that you can watch on demand, and you can join us in class live Saturday, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, okay, for our next class. And then Sundays, I teach Black resistance movements from the Haitian Revolution, U.S. Civil War, Civil Rights Movement, and Black Power Movement, 1800 to 1968. The first class is on sale $80. This one was on sale $40. As soon as you register, we have a number of class sessions you can watch. Our next class is Sunday, August 20th. So you can get caught up, join us in class live Sunday, August 20th, okay? And then we also have the information, our PayPal, Cash App information here on the website as well. $ the AHN show through Cash App. So if you learn anything from this broadcast, if you like it, you want to support us, $5, $10, $15, whatever it is, that helps us keep doing the research, stay on the air, keep broadcasting, upgrade equipment, etc. And you can support through Cash App, PayPal. I created this graphic here because some people set up fake African History Network Cash App accounts that have been stealing money from us. I'm still trying to get them shut down. I've launched an investigation with Cash App. This is our Cash App account, $ the AHNShow, HOW. When you go to it, say Michael. These and some other ones are fake African History Network Cash App accounts, okay? And then also our PayPal information here as well, $ the AHNShow through PayPal. My digital downloads and DVD lectures are available. We have a bundle pack, 15 lecture bundle pack of my lectures in DVD or digital download format. So check that out here also. All right, now, I'm going to go back to this here quickly, then we'll get out of here. Okay, so the Red Summer of 1919, this is just one example of armed self-defense, okay? Just one example. Indeed, many African-American soldiers returned from the war armed with a renewed determination to fight segregation and a near constant barrage of brutality. Okay, So read the rest of this article here. It's a fascinating article that deals with this history of armed self-defense. We know there was a huge race riot in July 1919 in Chicago, okay, which was part of the Red Summer. Name of this article, Red Summer of 1919, How Black World War I Vets Fought Back Against Racist Mobs. All right. So look, that's going to, I think I covered everything I wanted to cover here, and we'll deal with this some more on Sunday. But hopefully you learned a lot here, but keep in mind, saying things like we are not our ancestors is highly disrespectful and it's stupid. I don't know where people got that nonsense from, but when you, number one, we have a history of fighting back through armed resistance, number one. Number two, understanding African cosmology. Like if you read the book from Dr. Marimba Ani, Let the Circle Be Unbroken, understanding African cosmology, when a child is born, that is a spirit of an ancestor coming back to fulfill a purpose. So we are our ancestors, okay? And we need to stop disrespecting them, saying stupid things, thinking that our ancestors did not fight back. Even during slavery, we fought back every step of the way. Even on the continent of Africa, we fought back against the transatlantic slave trade. We fought back against colonial powers, okay? So we have to understand our history. We have to study our history. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. So when you control the radius of a man or woman's thoughts, you can control the circumference of his or her actions, because the mind can't teach what it doesn't know. All right. So hopefully you learned a lot today. Follow us on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network. Our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, Imhotep. Turn on live notifications so you know when we go live. Register for the online history classes that I teach. You can use this information with your children as well. This information, I would say, is PG-13. It's not overly graphic. I don't do a lot of cursing or anything like that. Okay, so it's not crazy. It's very well documented. There's 80 to 100 articles that we reference, 7 or 8 books. I put together the PowerPoint presentation. I put together the curriculum for both classes as well. So it's very well documented. All right, look, we have to get out of here. Remember, at the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world. Because right now it's correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. Hope you learned a lot today. Give us a thumbs up. Give us a heart. Give us a like on this broadcast. We'll talk to you next time. Peace.